Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion and the beautiful Katie.
Hello.
And today we are going to go see the childhood homes of one of our favorite actors, someone who was born Jerry Silberman and ended up changing his name and was in some of the funniest movies of all time. However, he kind of decided early on he was not going to do comedy, and it was Mel Brooks who brought him back into doing those. He is widely remembered as the great Gene Wilder. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all. It begins right now. How you doing today, Ja? I know you're a big fan of Willy Wonka. You and I have watched Gene in so many movies together, haven't we? Blazing Saddles, a lot of Willy Wonka. This quiet Milwaukee street is the street that Jerry Silberman grew up on. He would describe this as a big little town. So anytime he wanted to see a major play or movie or anything, he would never get to see it here. He would have to go to Chicago. Jerry Silberman first become Gene Wilder. So this house here on the corner was the childhood home of Gene Wilder. He would tell all kinds of stories in his book about this place, how he said he remembered when he was in second grade walking home from school and his friends and he seeing a naked lady laying on a couch, and she scrambled as soon as they saw her and like covered up the windows, and one of his friends blurted out the F word. So he said he came home and asked his mom what the F word meant, and she said, "You want to know what it means?" Took him into the bathroom and washed his mouth out with soap. Then he said one day, about a year later, when he was 8, she had a heart attack, and when the doctor came, he pulled Gene aside and said, well, Jerry, he said, if you want to keep your mom alive, don't ever upset her. It could kill her. So he said he tried to never ever upset her. He said one day the doctor told him to walk around the neighborhood and grab a giant brick from one of the houses that was being built and bring it home and put it on her chest. And that would relieve the pain in her chest. And so he said he did, and it did. But he said one point his mother sent him off to Hollywood, to Black Fox Academy, which I vlogged while I was there, and it was kind of meant to be a summer camp, and it was just a horrible experience where the other students found out he was Jewish and would beat him up all the time. So he asked his dad when Thanksgiving came around if he could come home, and so his dad brought him home, and when he walked in the door here, he said his mom asked him to play something on the piano since he had been studying piano. He was about 8 years old, and he said he sat down at the piano and played Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, and she got up and ran out of the room crying, and his dad told him to go change his clothes. So he said he took his shirt off and went to console his mother, and his mother saw the black and blue bruises on him and realized what had happened, and he said he never had to go back there, and she felt horrible about it. So he got a little bit of leeway because his sister, when they were living here, she was a year older. She was in a play, and she was studying with a man, actually she was 2 years older, was studying with a man named Herman Gottlieb. And Gene, went and saw the play and said, when I saw my sister up there, I thought she was God. I'd never seen anybody just so mesmerizing on a stage. And he said, I immediately wanted to become an actor. And we went and saw her acting teacher, and he said, you're 11 years old. When you're 13, you can come back. So he said the day he turned 13, he went and started studying acting, got so into it that he took a bus one day to Chicago and watched a bunch of plays and movies and things and saw paintings that really moved him. And he said when he came home, he showed his mom the print, and she told him he could set up a painting studio in the basement here. So he did, and he painted her an exact replica of the painting that he had bought the print of, and she was so amazed by it. She told him he was so good that he said he continued painting the rest of his life. Now there's a photo of him in his book out in front of here, but the family did eventually move, and it's kind of crazy because he would start doing local productions when he was a teen for like community theater and for the high school and stuff, and every time he was in it and they did the announcement, they would always put his home address in the photos. I just thought that was kind of crazy. So when he was about 14, his family moved to this house, and he said that when he was 15, that's when his acting career started. He had been taking those classes with Herman Gottlieb, and he ended up in a high school production of Romeo and Juliet playing Balthazar, and he had a blast doing it. So he said he started doing all the community things that were going on at the time. He just got in everything he could. And his sister went off and did summer stock in New York, and they needed an actor, and she knew he was a good actor. He was younger, he was only 16, but the director called his father and asked if Jerry Silberman could come and be in New York, and they would watch over him. And so he went and did summer stock there, and at the end of it, he and his sister, who was a couple of years older, went to New York, and they saw Lee J. Cobb in Death of a Salesman. And he said he went from always thinking growing up that he would be a comedian because he loved Sid Caesar so much, that he said when he saw Lee J. Cobb, he said this was a whole different thing. I realized what acting really was, and from then on he wanted to be a serious actor. And he said he came back to Milwaukee after that, got some of his friends to help him do a production of Death of a Salesman, and he said they would go and do it for women's groups and do it for pretty much anywhere that they could do it for the next year. Even at the high school, he just got pretty much submerged in this character. He loved doing it so much. Like I said, he was doing other productions, and they all had this listed as his address. It was weird. They would have the announcement for the play, and then whatever actors they were featuring in the announcement, if it was him and someone else, they would have their name and it would have their home address, which I thought was weird. But he said his sister was a really great actress, and she decided to go to this big school in Iowa, and they had one of the best theater programs in the world. So he said that he went and visited her, drove from Milwaukee to Iowa and visited her and saw her in it, and that's where he decided he was gonna go to the same program. And then he and his sister Cream both ended up going off to Broadway together eventually. But it's crazy because, you know, he did so many great movies, and I always kind of think of him as a comedian. So it's kind of crazy. Katie and I were talking about that. You know, he was always, I guess, the straight man in the Richard Pryor movies, but he did an interview where he said that Mel Brooks kind of changed everything for him.
Yeah, he had mentioned in his book and also in interviews that he never really considered himself a comedian. He really wanted to be more seen as a serious actor, but when he met Mel Brooks, everything changed. The producers ended up being a huge hit, and they ended up just really liking each other. It's like they understood each other's acting style, and of course they went on to do so many other great performances, and like Young Frankenstein, which is absolutely legendary.
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles was amazing.
Yeah, I love
groundbreaking and amazing.
I love Gene's work.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually, he said when he went to New York, that's where he changed his name from Jerry Silberman to Gene Wilder. I loved even his later stuff. He was really good in Woman in Red, that he was in with Gilda Radner, and she ended up dying of cancer. But he lived out his days in Stamford, Connecticut, and ended up passing away there of Alzheimer's. So kind of sad. He was in so many amazing things. It's not just the movie themselves. When you think of the movie, you think of him. Like I always think, you know, as many great people as there were in Blazing Saddles, it's hard to not think of Gene and that scene, the very first scene he does with Cleavon Little, where he's talking about how fast he is, and tells him to hold the chess piece in between his hand, and then he's taken it already. Really great comedic stuff. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed our day seeing the homes, the childhood homes of Gene Wilder. Thank you all for watching. Have a great night, and from Milwaukee, goodbye.